Okay, so it's been a while since I've done one of these, but this time I'm going to review the Doom Patrol Bronze Age omnibus from DC Comics. Previously I went over the Silver Age Doom Patrol omnibus. That ended with the death of the Doom Patrol back in 1968. This takes place, or just picks up, I should say, about 10 years later, in 1977. The Doom Patrol are dead, but not. And basically what happened is that a new writer, Paul Kupperberg, took over the, I guess, the reins of the Doom Patrol, and brought them back. I'm just going to take off the slipcase here. Brought them back in a 3-issue tryout in Showcase. Let me show you. I don't know if you can see this. The back has got some embossed figures on there. But Paul Kupperberg brought them back in 1977. And he has a forward here in the beginning of the book. Talking about how he brought them back and how the sales aren't really all that great. But it was enough to get other writers interested in them. And so they made a few appearances here and there over the next 10 years or so before they actually got their own series again. Now this is the new Doom Patrol. Robot Man, who was from the original series, Negative Woman, Valentina Vostok, a Russian, Tempest, and Celsius. Tempest is Joshua Clay, Celsius is Arania Desai, I want to say. Forget how to pronounce her name. Tempest and Celsius, and a new character would appear later on in the series once it started up. Lodestone would go on to appear in the Doom Patrol TV show. These guys. Ooh. And so they have become part of Doom Patrol history in a very strange way. And even though they weren't the most popular of characters, I guess. But these are from the original Showcase stories. And it's pretty good, I gotta say, especially for the time of 1977. The artwork is great. I think it's Joe Staton who did this. And of course, their first villain they face off against is General Immortus, because he's always after the immortality serum. But, like I said, the Showcase appearance didn't really sell all that well. It wasn't really a blockbuster. And so the team disappeared again for, well, they never had their own title, but they made appearances in books like Superman Family and The New Adventures of Supergirl. Apparently, you can see here, they had a few guest spots in the old Superman Family titles and Supergirl, and fought villains like Reactron and a couple other ones. And between the time that and New Teen Titans, they were in that as well, under Marv Wolfman and George Perez. But between the time that they made their appearance in Showcase in 1977, and by the time they got their new series, Doom Patrol started with Doom Patrol number 1 in 1987, which is about 10 years. A lot of things have changed at DC, including the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which had taken Supergirl out of continuity and replaced her with Power Girl. So Power Girl actually shows up later on in the series. Even though she remembers her history as, or she remembers meeting the Doom Patrol as Supergirl, I guess it is. But man, look at the art here. It's pretty cool, right? So I'm just going to skip ahead here a bit. We get to the Secret Origins Annual, which goes into the history of the original team and the secret origin, of course, of the new team, with a lot of Robot Man talking to himself. And this helps to kick off the new Doom Patrol #1 with that great wraparound cover that it had. You can see all this. Sorry about the position of the camera there. I haven't got much room to work with here. But this Coverberg's run lasted 18 issues. And he, like I said, he did introduce a lot of new characters to the book, or to the Doom Patrol history. Tempest, Celsius, and Negative Woman were all founding members of his version of the Doom Patrol. And then later on, you would get characters like Lodestone, who appeared in Morrison's run, because his run started in issue number 19. Coverberg's ended in issue 18. Karma, who was this guy who he had the ability to subconsciously mind control his enemies so that they wouldn't be able to hit him, which is kind of a weird power to have. And Scott Fisher, who could generate extreme heat from his body. There's kind of a good look at Negative Woman there. But when Morrison came in, he wanted a lot of these characters written out of the pictures. So later on, we get to the Invasion crossover. Coverberg has to kill off a lot of his characters. There's Lodestone there. Rhea, as she's called. And so a lot of them die off in pretty quick succession. Now, the first issue that I ever read of Doom Patrol, ever, was the issue number 17, which guest starred the Sea Devils and Aquaman. And that's in this book, in the omnibus here. And that was my introduction to Doom Patrol as a kid. And that's where Randy, I guess is her name, aka Celsius, died. She was blown up. And of course, throughout this, most people assume that the original Doom Patrol have all died. Like, Robot Man survived because he has his brain survived again, but he had to get a new robot body. 2 of them he gets, in fact, I think, in this. One more resembling the one he has here, resembling his first incarnation. His earlier one, which was maybe not the best design for the character. You can see it here. But the big difference between Coverberg's run and the writers that would follow him was that this is kind of standard superhero fare, whereas the Doom Patrol nowadays are known for being pretty weird and surreal in terms of their adventures and their powers, right? So these are the new characters, or some of the new characters. Karma, Lodestone, and Scott Fisher. Lodestone had control the electromagnetic fields around people and, I think, objects, and she could fly, had super strength at times, and stuff like that. Scott Fisher, like I said, had just a lot of, could generate enormous heat. I love this cover here. This is pretty cool. The stories here, like I said, are not as strange or surreal as you would expect from a Doom Patrol story. They're not all that weird, but there are some moments, like Shrapnel here is oh, and Negative Man survived. I forgot to mention that, Larry Traynor. The original explosion with Shrapnel is a pretty cool villain that Coverberg introduced. But for the most part, even though we have some returning villains like Gargax and General Immortus, Mr. 103, who is now Mr. 104 from the original series, they all came back. But the stories are pretty straightforward. There's no, people running around with their heads or something like that. It's like you would have in Morrison's run. It was his stories were focused more on surrealism and Dadaism and things like that. And this is just standard superhero fare. The one thing I really like about this book, I'm just going to flip through the pages here. But the great thing about this omnibus is the, look at that, that's pretty cool, is the amount of bonus material in the back. It's the death of Irani there, spoiler alert. Sorry, but it's been, what, 1987, 88 when she died? But the amount of bonus material in this book is pretty extraordinary. So there's an unpublished Doom Patrol story by Paul Koberberg in here. And you can see the pages from the script detailing the panels and the layouts. And because it was never finished, of course, you have the artwork over here on the right hand side, and on the left, excuse me, you have the dialogue for the panels. And the unpublished story basically involves Negative Woman, Valentina Vostok, going back to Russia and dealing with the fact that her parents are being punished for her defection / treason against the USSR or Russia. That's a pretty cool look at the character. I wish it would have been in the series itself, but overall it doesn't really change anything for the characters. In terms of, you know, there's nothing that would have fundamentally changed the Doom Patrol as a comic if it had been published. But it's very cool to see, because this was done basically as a fill-in script, fill-in issue, just in case they had any deadline problems and where they couldn't meet a deadline and needed something to publish in its in the place of a regular issue. And there is some bonus material beyond that. Like there's some Who's Who pages inside Robot Man from the old DC Blue Ribbon digests, which is pretty cool. Most people probably don't know about that. There's the original Doom Patrol proposal, series proposal by Koberberg, explaining where the Doom Patrol have been and what their new origins would be, some of the new characters. There's some unpublished artwork. Pencils from the book. This is presenting the Doom Patrol. Originally published in Secret Origins Annual number 1. And there's a letter column from I think the first issue of Doom Patrol of the 1987 series. Give me some behind the scenes information. There's Bob Greenberger, who was an editor at DC at the time, and wrote some of this stuff. There was the Doom Patrol Suicide Squad specials in here as well. The pages from the Doom Patrol source book with the history of the Doom Patrol. And there are a ton of pages of Who's Who in here for anyone that's a big fan of the old Who's Who series. And there are some unpublished, well, not unpublished, but there are some pencils only pages of the showcase issues, and so there's a ton of bonus materials in here. Issue number 1 of the original of the monthly series, and a couple other issues as well, I believe. So I mean, it's a pretty impressive collection because it's probably one that people know the least amount about, because of the like I said, it was just before Grant Morrison took over the title, and his run is kind of legendary now, but the Koberberg's run was not forgotten entirely, but it was never as popular as Morrison's was, certainly. And of course, like I said, a lot of these characters and concepts that Koberberg introduced have now made appearances in the Doom Patrol TV show. So they do have a bit of a legacy, or Koberberg has a legacy at least, in terms of Doom Patrol history there, for introducing some of the characters. The Doom Patrol, as it was, episode of Doom Patrol, which was episode, I want to say 5? Let's see here. Doom Patrol, episode 6. The new Doom Patrol meets the original Doom Patrol, which is actually the opposite of how it worked in the comics. So it is an important part of Doom Patrol history for me, and for, I guess, Doom Patrol fans. And you can pick it up, like I said, at your local comic book shop. I had to order mine from Amazon because there's no comic book shops here. But it did lead into Grant Morrison's run later on. And like I said, it did introduce Dorothy Spinner. I should have shown you that in the pages, but I passed it by, sadly. And in terms of the omnibus that are out now, the John Byron one, I've got that on order, so I might look at that later on. And Doom Patrol Weight of the Worlds, of course, is the current Doom Patrol series, even though it's coming to an end soon. Issue number 7 is out next month, and the trade for this will be out in August, I want to say. But if you do want to read up on some of the Doom Patrol, you can go ahead and like I said, pick this up. It's a bit more expensive than the Silver Age version. This is $125 US and $163 in Canada in terms of the price. The Silver Age version was a bit cheaper. That was, let's just see here, that was $99 US and $130 Canadian, which is where I'm from. I'm in Canada here, so I have to pay a bit more, sadly. And in the meantime, you can go out and pick up the Doom Patrol trades by Gerard Way and read Doom Patrol Weight of the Worlds if you want to get into some more current comic books. But yeah, like I said, overall, great collection, celebrating a probably lesser known version of the Doom Patrol team. And I said it does introduce a lot of characters that have come to have a lot of resonance since then in other media. And it does introduce Dorothy Spinner, which is a big character now in the Doom Patrol TV series as it heads into season 2, and was a big character in Grant Morrison's run. Negative Woman there. And looks at the artwork. I'm not real fond of Larson's artwork overall, but it is serviceable. But the coloring on this is great, and the stories themselves are pretty good. The characters are all pretty likable, but again, spoiler alert for those who haven't read it yet. It does see the introduction and the death of a lot of these characters. So it's almost like a beginning and the end of an era in Doom Patrol history right here in this one volume. But yeah, if you've read it, or if you want to read it, comment down below, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and have some fun reading some comics, man. Go check them out.